How's everyone doing today? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 94. Today, my special guest is the ever engaging, charismatic, fun loving Dave Norman, co owner of Zegema Beach Records, just an amazing, dope record label. Dave, I'm going to grab you in 2 seconds. He was also in some amazing bands too. We'll get into that as well. Just super stoked to talk to him. Yeah, very amped. I'm going to grab you right now. Let's see what we got here.
Oh, that's the wrong way. How do I spin this guy around? Can I not spin this guy around? Okay. I can't see you now.
No? Oh,
No. Does that? No, that's going to be... Crap, I can't see what's happening. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
no problem. We'll make this work.
I'll just kneel. Does that work?
That works.
Okay, sweet. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. So you can't see me though?
No.
That's all right. That's fine. We'll go with that. Dave, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me. I mean, I really appreciate it. Was super stoked to have you say yes to this. And you have a treasure trove of information about screamo and heavy music that I just want to kind of delve into and tap into because you're someone that I look up to because you know so much about the music and you're such a big supporter and your label is so amazing. You know, I think you took the helm from Level Plane, in my opinion, and you've been doing your thing for 20 years, right?
No, only about 10 so far. Well, in
Oh,
terms of like label stuff, but yeah.
oh really? I thought, what was the first release that Zegma Beach released?
2013?
2013.
Yeah.
And what was that number one release?
It was the Amber self-titled release that was already kind of released digitally, and I was like, I love this record, or I love this album. Do you want to release it on
Yeah.
vinyl? And they were like, yeah. So
Nice, nice. And then you had that sampler number one was the second thing that you put out with like Casillas and Carrying Spring was that the second thing that was put out by you?
that was never intended, I guess, as an official release. I didn't know that I was going to be doing a bunch of samplers. In fact, the first one was called a sampler. I didn't even come up with the idea. My wife did after the first one had come out. So that was I know that things had been lined up. Like La Parade was already pretty much done, and Via Fondo was already pretty much finished their EP as well. So I couldn't say if that was second or not, but I know I got Discumbriendo on Mr. Mime was the first record that I physically had in my hands that had the ZBR logo. I think that was number two.
Yeah,
That was a co-release with Dog Nights.
nice, nice. Now, where were you brought up as a kid? Like, where was your hometown?
The majority of my upbringing would have been in Whitby, Ontario, which is like an hour east of Toronto,
Mhm.
right on Lake Ontario.
Nice. Now, were you a big hockey fan when you were a young kid?
Honestly, I was I had this weird I, in between two worlds. I really liked music, but I was kind of a jock in terms of I played a lot of sports.
Yeah.
Uh, didn't have the jock mentality per se, but yeah. So big hockey fan, huge football NFL fan. Those are the big two, I guess. But
Nice.
I played.
Nice. Was Toronto Maple Leafs your favorite team, or did you kind of was Montreal Canadiens or
Well, I had a brain, so I didn't latch on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That would just be silly. Uh, I tended to go for teams that had my favorite players at the time. So I remember I was a very big Detroit fan, especially in the '90s when they were gunning for the cups and stuff. And my brother was a very big Rangers fan, so I remember watching those two teams, not exclusively, but much more than anyone else.
yeah.
But I like Vancouver, I guess, was my Canada team if I had to pick one.
Yeah, nice, nice. Um, yeah, I'm from New England, so weirdly, Montreal Canadiens was my team when I was little, all the way till now. Which being in the Boston area was not very frowned upon, but I still stay true to Montreal Canadiens. So
That's sweet. Do you still watch hockey? I'm
yeah,
guessing yes.
I'm more of a college basketball guy now. Like that's my main sport that I watch, and my kids are all in basketball too. So it's like my whole world is music and basketball, pretty much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, Usually, the first question I ask on here is, when you were young, what kind of music were you listening to, and then what kind of transitioned you to the punk hardcore world? Um, it's like a two-part question, I guess.
How early do you want me to start with like
I mean,
what
when
I
you first like
imagine?
realized music, you were into music. Like you said, you were into music when you were younger kid. What were you listening to, and then what kind of transitioned that to the heavier stuff?
Well, I remember going over to my friend Ian's house, who was lived on my court, and his parents had, I guess, got a new record player and had essentially regifted theirs to him. So I remember playing some 7 inches in his room. Well, I didn't play them. He had the 7 inches, and I don't know if they were his or his parents, but there was Technotronic
Yeah.
and I don't remember the other one. But essentially, I got a rap tape because of it
Hmm.
that had Sir Mix-a-Lot and again Technotronic and what was that? Color Me Bad.
Yeah.
Color Me Bad. Oh my God, I'm so old. So I was really into that kind of music, I guess first, which would be what's that? Just pop,
Yeah.
80s pop, ugh, early 90s pop. So that how did that trans? I guess there was a culmination of things. My dad showed me his Sex Pistols records when
Hmm.
I was getting into like alternative music. So there was a lot of alternative music coming out of the local Much Music, like the MTV Canadian knockoff, as well as 102.1 The Edge in Toronto, which was playing a lot of alternative music, a lot of really good Canadian alternative music, as well as American stuff as well. So there was kind of the mashing of those two worlds. And then in grade 9, I mean, at that point, I was listening to Everclear, White Zombie, Pantera, Our Lady Peace, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The what's that like? The alternative, the post grunge alternative era, essentially.
Yeah.
I was really big into Nirvana as well. And then my friend showed me. Okay, so I knew about punk and I knew about Rancid, and I was like, I hate Rancid. I hear Ruby Soho or whatever on the radio all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
why do they sound like they're British? They're from the States. What's going on? So I was very anti-punk for a very long time. I thought it was all mohawks and being crappy to people. And then my friend showed me Vincent, the NoFX cover on Fat Wreck. Was it Fat? Survival of the Fattest, the second
Yeah.
one. And I don't know what happened to my brain. My brain was like, oh, there's all these palm mutings going on here. I didn't know what palm muting was. There's like the chicka chicka thing going on there. And I really liked how the guy has like snotty vocals, but could still kind of sing, kind of. My dad would argue with me on this. He hates me. So that really just exploded into getting into Fat Wreck Chords
Hmm.
and by association Epitaph Records, getting all the Punkorama volumes to try to eat up all of the unreleased tracks that ended up on those comps and
Yeah.
finding out about the bands that were on there. I mean, those two labels pretty much were the catapult for me getting into punk and everything associated with it.
Nice, nice. And so from there, where did it go with the like heavier, harder stuff? I mean, were you into like the straight up hardcore stuff first, or do you bifurcate?
No, no, because of my, I guess, alternative upbringing. Well, it is weird because I listened to Pantera, so you could certainly make the argument that I was listening to pretty abrasive music early.
Mm.
But I didn't. I'll give you two examples. Well, okay, I was listening to pop punk, skate punk. Like NoFX is what got me into it. So I was into NoFX. I was into No Use for a Name. I was into High Standard. I was into any of the bands that were those kind of offshoots. And I would hear a lot of the harder stuff, in particular on the Punkorama compilations.
Yeah.
So I would hear Straight Faced. I
Mm.
would hear no, they didn't have Against All Authority. That was some of the other labels. Anyway, 59 Times the Pain. Holy shit. Raised Fist, all that kind of stuff. So I got into Burning Heart as well. So I didn't really get that stuff that much. And then Punkorama 4 came in, and it had Refuse Summer Holidays versus Punk Routine on it. And I like fell in love with that song.
Yeah.
And I got the album. I hated it because it was like way heavier. And then I scratched the CD, and then I brought it back to HMV, and I got a refund for Lagwagon's Trashed. And then I ended up getting the album later because I was listening to 88 Fingers Louie on the floor at a cottage that my parents had rented in like the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep. And the 88 Fingers Louie Back to the Streets finished. And before I would sell my CDs, I would put them on tape. Like, I don't want to lose this thing forever, so I still have a copy of it. Yeah. But I ended up being like, oh, screw Refuse, and I just did 88 Fingers Louie over it. But that ended, and then Refuse Party Program came on. And is it Refuse Party? The one that has like the whirling ending. I think it's Refuse Party Program. It definitely is. And I remember having my headset on and feeling like I was spinning the way that they like done everything with the producing there, and it sounded so awesome. And then I listened to the rest of the album, and then I went back and I think I must have had it on my computer or something, and I jammed that album more and more, and I realized how awesome the heavy stuff was.
Yeah.
And that combined with Death by Stereo, because Death by Stereo had almost like the singing thing, and I'm like, oh, I like the singing, but I don't like the screaming. And then with enough listens, I was like, I like all of the stuff. So that's how I got into hardcore.
Nice. Yeah, I know it's I know you talked to Ron from Gene Scene, and we always talk about the subgenres and the genres, and so many bands just get lopped into so many different genres that it's like I said, screamo to me, because I'm older, was kind of like a weird phrase, but now it's almost like back to like what it was, because for a few years, maybe 10 years ago, screamo was like asking Alexandra, if you ask somebody if they like screamo. Now I feel like it's back to where it should be, you know what I mean? So for 10 years or 15 years ago, people would say real screamo, or emotional hardcore, or whatever you want to say. So it was kind of a weird phrase for me for a while, because I hadn't heard the term until after the big like Godfathers of screamo had already disbanded. So it was kind of just a weird phrase for me. Yeah,
you had that with screamo, and I had that with Scramps, because I was already like, this is screamo, and then people were like, this is Scrams. I'm like, oh, it's a screamo, just say screamo. And now I'm like, it's Scrams, whatever, I don't care, it's fine.
Yeah. Now I wanted to ask you too, when was it that you, or what band was it that really got you into like the real heavy stuff, like the real screamo stuff? What kind of grasped you to
screaming music, or like screamo specifically?
Like screamo specifically.
The lineage goes back to, I really liked At the Drive-In. I tried to find bands like At the Drive-In. I found the Blood Brothers. I tried to find bands like the Blood Brothers. I found Transistor. And then from there, I scoured Level Plane's roster, because at that same time, I also read a review on punknews.org for City of Caterpillar's self-titled and the Seisha discography CD. Yeah. So like all of those things like happened at once, and then I bought a bunch of stuff off of Interpunk, and I would buy large quantities of things from Level Plane and In It, and a lot of the labels that were around back then.
Yeah, Robotic Empire was kind of big at that point too, as well.
Electric Human Project.
Yeah, there was so many like good labels at that time in like the late 90s to early 2000s. And that's what really got me into that music, because my background was I got into kind of like metal, heavy metal stuff, and then it was like thrash metal, and then it turned into like straight up like New York City hardcore, and then Boston had their own scene, so I was part of that as a kid. I mean, I was at the Channel and the Rat at age 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, growing up in that scene. And and then like I was talking to you on Messenger, that I saw that one show. My friend was like, "Oh, let's check out this show," and I didn't really know. I think the only bands I really knew were like I had heard of Reversal Man, and uh, I didn't even know who Seisha was. Somebody was like, "Oh, you got to check out this band Seisha," and I watched Seisha, and I was like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" I was like, "This is amazing," and all those bands in that fest just changed my mind. You know what I mean? It was like I was into like the heavy moshing, like hardcore stuff, heavy stuff, but that just kind of took me in a new direction. And then from there on, I still liked the regular hardcore stuff, but my love changed very much for that style of you know, screamo, emotional hardcore type stuff. So
You're a lifer.
yes.
There's the less than 5 years, and then there's the lifers. That's it. It's black and white. I swear to God.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Well, I remember in high school, I played sports as well, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, you're never gonna listen to this in 5 years," and I was like, "I'm gonna tell you right now, I will be," and they're like, "There's no way that you'll be listening to this stuff," and then at age 50, I'm talking about it and listening to it every day. So I proved them wrong. So anybody that
Definitely did.
told me I wasn't going to, here I am. But back to you. So when you started getting into that screamy stuff, were you trying to go to shows once you found out about this type of music?
I got into this type of music, would have been second year of university. Yes, because I was living on my own. Well, not on my own. Living with friends in like a townhouse. So I didn't like. I guess I knew about. I knew about shows. My friends played in Protest the Hero, so like I'd gone to shows. Um, I remember making the trek out to see NoFX and Consumed when they came over from Europe. Used to love Consumed. Oh my god. But there was just something about screamo and shows that just didn't show up on my radar until Hot Cross came to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of screamo bands were still touring through Toronto and stuff, but they were probably doing a lot of DIY house shows and stuff that with the internet seeming pretty new and everything, it was hard to find those. But when Hot Cross was playing at whatever it was, like Sneaky D, that was a pretty big venue in Toronto. So
Yeah.
it was promoted, and I saw it. I was like, oh my god, I got to go see a screamo show. So I saw that. It was with Holy Shroud. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Now was there, do you remember shows with like Spread the Disease and stuff like that? Because they were from, Canada. Was there, I guess what my question is, was there not really a scene at that time in the years before you saw Hot Cross? Like where you were from?
I
Was
mean, I'm sure there was, because like you said, I mean, it was popping in Hamilton for how long with Grade and all of those, and I would see Grade all the time in Toronto and everything.
Yeah.
But Grade had progressed past they had gone past their screamo days. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
progress. So like I didn't hear ties to the older stuff. It was always, oh, we're moving forward. Here's Head First Straight to Hell. Here's the more metal stuff. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they got really good stage presence. Blah blah blah. But there was never this crossover anywhere, and they never played shows that I saw at that time with screamo bands.
Yeah.
I saw Viewed the Obscure and stuff like that because of it. So I got to see like the metallic hardcore kind of stuff, but I just don't think I was I didn't really follow people. I didn't have people show me like the shows. I had to find them myself. So my resources were only as far as I could go, and I'm not very good at researching things, as my wife knows. Got to find something on a website. Ask Lisa. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember back then it was like you said, Grade and Left for Dead and the Chris Colohan bands, Cursed after that and the Swarm and stuff like that. That was like, really crushing up there. Canada had such a heavy sound at that time frame, and I think it came back around up in Canada maybe I would say 5, 6, 7 years ago like all of a sudden now Canada has a huge scene now. What Nathan is doing at No Funeral and setting up shows there in Kitchener and stuff like that, and New Friends Fest, and just like it seems like so many good bands are coming out of Canada in the past few years. What do you think of that? I mean, why do you think it kind of, there was like a little gap and then an explosion of Canada bands now, you know, and now the scene is pretty good up there.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess if I were to, I feel like if I were to look at it chronologically with all of, my resources in front of me, I would probably see that Canada had a pretty steady scene in terms of like output, but maybe it just wasn't all picked up on. I mean, I miss a ton of Canadian stuff I find out about now. I'm like, oh my God, I came out in 2001. How have I never heard about this before?
Yeah.
Kata comes to mind, for example. So, I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely, there were people who just happened to start bands. Um, I'm thinking of when I started putting on shows. There was there was a scene in Toronto. So I think it should be noted that M from Fox Mulder really held down the Toronto screamo scene.
Mm.
Probably someone you might want to consider talking to because they're like my predecessor. Well, not even mine because I was never like based in Toronto, but they're the predecessor to New Friends, 100%. That was a Mountain Far. That is where I accessed all of my screamo
Yeah.
from when I began going to shows. So I saw Fox Mulder, I saw Creeper and Animal Faces. Oh my God, Animal Faces. And those bands spawned other bands like Respire, and I think they really influenced like Terry Green.
Mm.
So I feel like there was a scene for a long enough time that you were really able to incubate, I guess, people in bands, and they could, you know, share their common love of screamo, and then they would get even more excited about it. They'd start more bands. They would, then the internet, everything. People started more projects, internet projects as well. So I assume it's a bit of a snowball effect, but I couldn't place where or why it necessarily happened.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of ebbs and flows, like where I'm from in New Hampshire, because New Hampshire has put out some pretty good bands. In maybe the late '90s, there was like more of a metal chorish type of thing, but it was kind of an obscure metal chorish type of thing. It was, there was a band called Fault and Ukla the Mock from New Hampshire, and the scene was really, there was so many shows that happened up here. I mean, Reversal Man played in Rochester, New Hampshire with Asuk and Bastion at the time, which had members of Force Fed Glass, and it was just like the scene, the Backstabbers Incorporated guys were in a band called As I Bleed. They were from New Hampshire. So it was like a really big thriving scene in the late '90s. And then it kind of died down a little bit. And then it amped up again with, Bravo fucking Bravo and La Antium and then, the small bands that I was in. And there was bands from, I mean, there was a lot of bands playing in New Hampshire. Furnace had people that lived in New Hampshire as well, and everybody thinks that New Hampshire is not really like it's a small state, not much of a scene, but I mean, it's like I said, it ebbs and flows. It was a huge scene, died down, then it came huge again, and now it's very kind of quiet here again, which is sad to say. But like you were saying, some people start up bands, and there's kids that want to play, and it's all about like if kids want to play in bands, and I guess around here now it's not as prevalent as it was at one time. So
Yeah, it takes one band because it just takes one band with kids in a school who just are either popular enough or they play their music well enough that more people in that school and then the town just become engrossed in it and it really takes off. But if you don't have anyone doing that, then it's like, it's trying to start a fire in bottom of the ocean. It's not happening.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Really.
I wanted to mention New Forms, even though they're a Massachusetts band. Justin was from my neck of the woods, and he played in a band called Alessa that my old band had played a few shows with as well. So I don't know if you ever heard Alessa, but
How do you spell it?
Alessa.
Oh, I've seen the name, but I'm gonna say no, I haven't heard.
Yeah, they put out a 7-inch, and I don't know if they had a split with somebody too. They might have had a split with somebody too, but they were around for a few years, and then Justin, years later, new forms, which like with the new singer now is. I saw them live this summer. Wow, I was blown away. I mean, I like that old release that they just put out like a year and a half ago, or what was it, 2 years ago maybe? Is that
Yeah,
how?
probably too. I feel like it was the start of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. But now I feel like they got even better. And live, I was like, wow, they sound really tight. And Justin's a good dude too, definitely.
Yeah, I know Chris, and Chris is the one who was always feeding me the new form stuff. It's like, this is fantastic. You are very good at what you do.
I wanted to ask also about how did you all of a sudden realize that you wanted to start a label? How did that actually happen?
Yeah, that goes back to the Protest the Hero days. Just they were still called Happy Go Lucky, and they were my brother's pretty much best friends. So, uh, like I already knew them all very personally because they would come over to my house every day after school. We'd play soccer and Nintendo and stuff together. So when I saw them go from being a pretty decent like skate punk band to like, whoa, why are you all like playing like you're 25 and you're 15 years old? I was like, I'm gonna start a label. I'm gonna sign Protest the Hero, and that's gonna be my thing. And it was an idea that I had for maybe 2 or 4 months. I maybe looked into one thing, and I forgot about it. And then Underground Operations signed Protest the Hero, and then I was like, oh, I got nothing. And it just sat at the back of my mind for, how long would that have been? It would have been when I was like 17. So well over 10 years before I really thought about it seriously again. And then, well, I guess when I was in university, I watched Starship Troopers, not for the first time, but well, rather intoxicated, and found the one Zegema Beach scene extremely funny. So I remember saying that night, if I ever have a label, it's Zegema Beach Records. So there was kind of these two things that happened, like 7 years before, like a long time before the label was actually started. But
Yeah.
it wasn't until I got an inheritance from my grandfather, and my wife was like, "You should start a label." Oh, okay. It was also her idea to start the blog too. So
That was going to be my second question, like the how you funded it in the beginning, just like the thought process of funding like these releases and stuff like that.
Oh my God, I remember being like, if I sell all of these records in X amount of time, it's 9 years and I still have some. So right out of the gate, my plan was just like walked all over. It just didn't work out. So I didn't get much. I got enough to cover most of the pressing, I think, or the pressing and then part of the second pressing, and then I grossly overestimated how many records I would sell. Grossly overestimated. But it takes time to figure that stuff out. So that stuff just came out of personal work stuff, and for a couple of years there was times where I had a lot of like serious financial issues because I wasn't making enough at my crappy jobs really anyway, and then I liked stuff a lot and I couldn't say no. So
Yeah.
ticket to Screamo. Oh no.
Yeah. Like the trial and error must have been, you know what I mean, taxing at times. And
Well, some people do it the right way and start small and try to go bigger, and I don't know why I think I thought I was starting small, but wow, was I very opportunistic for a Canadian new label. Like, I'm going to press 500 copies. No one knows who I am. No one knows this band. 500 copies. Let's go.
And to promote this back then, how were you doing? Like, what were you doing to promote this? I mean,
oh man, that was.
We do a lot of shows and setting up with, like record boxes and saying,
Yep. local fairs, putting on shows, going to shows, making samplers, trying to give them to people, promoting it through the blog, contacting other blogs to try to promote the stuff. Almost all of it going on deaf ears at those times too. First 6 years, I would say, of ZBR was very difficult. A lot of just like, well, I'm glad I really love this because if this was considered a business, I would have packed it in immediately. So.
Well, it's definitely a labor of love. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, nowadays, I mean, what was the last release you just did? Was it the Of Deaf discography? Was that the last release that you put out, or was there something after that?
I feel like there's something newer on the ZBR Bandcamp. Maybe it's just a thank you driver that we're releasing on Monday.
Oh,
I
you
think
are?
I'm thinking of
Yeah.
that. So no, nothing. I guess nothing since of death. I don't know. We do Tomb Tree too, so I just keep thinking of Tomb Tree. I think that's why.
Yeah. So when did it start like chugging as a machine, and when bands were getting in touch with you? And I mean, was it overwhelming at times? Like once it started rolling, that bands were like, "Hey, I'm going to send you this music." Like, I mean, was there bands trying to get on your label? Was it too much for you, and you kind of had to pick and choose who you wanted? And how did it start getting, evolving and start, chugging away?
Um, it's like I feel like it was super gradual. There were so many things that just kind of came together over time because of work and stuff that aligned. But one of the biggest things was running the blog, and I was running the blog before I started the label.
Yeah.
And running a blog, you get, especially at that time, like I can't preface. I think I said this on something else recently, but when I started the label and someone posts a new album digitally online, they're like, "Hey, here's our new digital thing," or like maybe we did some tapes ourselves. I would ask them, "Oh, hey, you want me to do something for you?" And they would always be like, "Yeah, no one else has asked us."
Yeah.
And now, if someone posts something, even like slightly above average,
Hmm.
and maybe it like speaks to me, and I will reach out to that band and be like, "Oh yeah, like three other people already hit us up about it, so we'll figure something out maybe." So
Yeah.
I feel like it's really different now, and there's maybe now is a bit incorrect. 2 years ago, like kind of when COVID started, I feel like the labels, screamo labels, were all popping off
Yeah.
in a good way, and then as COVID continued and the recession kicked in, there a lot of them are slowing down, understandably so. So the blog really helped get me early and easy access to those things, and then doing the blog plus doing the label for such a long time, just I met, I basically meet a new few people every week essentially through doing the blog and everything. So I just ended up knowing a ton of people just because I would post about them, and my silly brain remembers things like track times and luckily who plays in what band. So I was able to easily kind of track it all in my head. And then I did ZBR Fest in 2017 in Toronto, which was that's when I was like, oh wow, I'm doing a better job than I realized because a lot of people came, and I remember Rohan from New Friends Fest was like, I didn't think you're going to be able to pull this off, but you did, and I'm very proud of you. I remember I was crying. I was like, yes. So like there was that, and then there was kind of like the screamo metalcore like fusion that was going on in 2018 with Gift from God and See You Space Cowboy and Risk Razor, so that helped catapult things up. And it was right around that time that Dave Cullen from Crowning asked if he could open a U.S. store for me because I shipping from Canada was essentially stopping the label from really growing at all
Yeah.
because people didn't want to pay shipping. So like, how am I supposed to get around that?
Yeah.
So the saint that he is opened a U.S. store, and that helped. And then over very quickly, he kind of opened up after realizing that I'm a workaholic when it comes to screamo, and he was like, "Oh, you take this as seriously as I do? All right, I'm a video editor. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this." And I'm like, "Oh yes!" So he really legitimized Zegema from from a couple points, but definitely like internet professional perspective, as well as, running the US store. And at this point, he pulls bands out and he's like, yo, check this band out. Let's do this 7-inch. Or he's like, we're doing this like 12-inch. And I'm like, sweet. So there was like maybe like a bit of a veto system with him and I in the past. And we're just so on the same level that I don't know. We really are the same person. It's very weird. So all of those things kind of coming together, I think really the opening of the US store was when it became the Machine, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
have to really put my own money in anymore, except for on some like really huge releases that have a 16-month wait time, and I can't get the investment back until 2 years after I invest. So
Yeah.
Machine. That's the Machine, the Screamo Machine. It doesn't really work, but you can just scrape by break even if you're lucky.
I mean, one of the things I admire about you also is that you have your hand in the old, like, I know I sound old, but kind of like the old schoolish screamo, and you have your hand in the new style of screamo too, which that I admire you so much, because a lot of people just, they don't go back and listen to the early stuff. They just listen to the new stuff. Or you have old heads that will only listen to the old stuff, and then if they hear anything new, they go, oh, well, that's just a knockoff of, who, that's just a knockoff of Examination of that. I don't like that, like blah blah blah. So, I mean, it's like a rarity for someone like me and you that are getting older and still have their hand in both things, because I think it's synonymous with each other. For me, it's not it's not cut and dry where I'm like, oh, I'm only going to listen to old stuff. I really enjoy the new stuff as well. And do you see a lot of that, or do you see a lot of what I was just explaining, like old heads just being like, no, I don't really care for the new stuff, or vice versa?
It's totally both, and I think it goes back to the 5-year thing. I think a lot of the old heads that you're talking about probably only made screamo for 5 or 6 years and probably did not continue making it. Tom Schlatter, Edie Quinn, like these two people have been completely immersed in the screamo community for how long? 25 years or so or more. I don't even know.
Yeah.
So, and they love do music. I post something new and, Tom Schlatter's like, this is exactly what I needed today. I'm like, yeah, 20 years later, still getting them. And Edie, puts out bangers all the time. So, it's really just, I think it depends on, did those people that you're talking to stick around and continue playing screamo, or did they have their fill and, they were like, everything that I want to be done with screamo has been done, so I'm going to move on to my next venture, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
So I would say pretty much everyone I talk to is of the mind that they're open to stuff, and I feel like it depends. It depends on how like hardcore the person is in researching. You'll get people who like screamo who will listen to what's shown to them, and then you'll have people who will research and be like, oh, that band was influenced by this band. I'm gonna go check out this band.
Yeah.
And then, can you put yourself in that time frame and be like when I listen to One Eyed God Prophecies, greatest thing I've ever heard? No, but for the time frame,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was. So like being able to like take yourself out of the moment and like not like, oh, this band sounds like this band and this band and this band. Like, no, this band was before those bands. You've got to like think about it differently. And some people don't want to do that or just don't have the time to do it, and I do, or at least I make the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And touching on the old school type of stuff, what do you think of the resurgence of the newer bands? I mean, not the newer bands, but the older bands coming back together again, like City of Caterpillar, and I know Jerome Stream did it a few years ago, and now Botch is doing it as well. And I mean, I feel it's like popping up everywhere. What do you think of that?
I am all for it. I don't really see. I mean, you'd have to do something pretty bad to taint the legacy, I feel like. So whether the bands are semi-rehashing their old stuff and giving me more of what I love, or if they're experimenting out with new stuff and I either love it or I don't like it, it's fine. I still like the old stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it. I it depends on, is it for money or is it for passion?
Yeah.
I feel like most of them are based on passion that they thought they had lost, and fans have kind of shown them like, get back together, you're gonna sell at the show, and it's not like, oh, we're gonna make a lot of money. It's like, oh my god, we can sell at a show? We never sold out a show. We were tiny back in the day. Well,
Yeah.
not for all of those fans, obviously, that you mentioned, but for some of them. I mean, like
Yeah.
Seisha never sold. I mean, I I wasn't around, but I can't imagine more than like 100 people ever went to a show specifically to see Seisha at
Yeah.
one time,
Yeah.
and then you got them selling out, in a minute, and they put more tickets online. They would have sold way more had they, had the capacity to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw him at that fest, it was, I mean, it was an all day fest. So they probably played halfway through, and there was only maybe 40 kids watching him at that time, and which is,
And maybe 5 or 10 of them were there for Seisha as well.
yeah, yeah. Because and they opened up my eyes. So hopefully, I mean, they were opening up other people's eyes as well. There was a few influential shows that I went to that kind of opened my eyes too. There was a fest that I went to in New Bedford, Massachusetts, called Fuck Fest, which had Usurp, Synapse, Neil Perry, um, Joshua Fit for Battle. The day before that, it was As the Sun Sets. Before, it was like they were transitioning into Daughters. Trillion Barnacle Labs, when they were actually like a screamo band and not, that first 7-inch. That's what they were playing at that fest. It was Purity's Failure played. It was a mix of a lot of different bands, like kind of like an emo style band, Moment. I don't know if you've ever heard Moment before, but they're a really good band as well. Just a great fest, and that was kind of influential to me too. Seeing that was the early days. Those were the shows that kind of changed my mind into, I think I'm going to start going to screamo shows all the time now. And then being friends with Brian Faber, the original drummer of Transistor. I worked with him. We hung out all the time, and so of course he was like, oh, Hal, you have to go to this show. You got to go to this show. Well, we're playing this show. We're playing this show. And then, maybe a year later, I started my own band, and then we ended up playing a few shows together. And then I started setting up shows, and then it just turned into, the snowball effect of I was consumed by screamo at that time. So
I have a question for you. What was the mood or like general aura of the shows that you went to back in those golden days versus shows that you go to nowadays? Is it like the same, except people have more cell phones, or like,
yeah, I mean, honestly,
I have no idea.
but you know what's funny is the newer shows nowadays, there's not too many people that are using their cell phones. At least the last few shows that I went to, I didn't see too many people with their cell phones out. Obviously, I had mine out because I've been, taking videos of shows for decades, and so I don't feel so bad because I used to be the guy with the camcorder. My hand would be shaking and it would be going up and down, and I was like, I'd have to switch hands, and so the band would be like all over the place for a second because I'm like, oh, I gotta rest this hand, so that's why I do it. But like you said, I feel like the crowd and the people that support the music are very similar, kind of. And I was talking to Ron, my friend from Gene, saying you know him as well, and I feel like you might have not thought there was a resurgence with the screamo thing, but I feel like the community is closer now, like it was back then. I didn't see any trouble back then at those shows, unless there was a mixed, the Assuck, Reversal Man, Frodis, Bastion, Jerome's Dream actually played that show in Rochester, New Hampshire too. That show got ended early because Assuck at the end of the night was the last band that played, and there was 3 fights. It was the hardcore screamo kids, and there was a bunch of crust punks there, and it turned into this big brawl in the middle, and then the show got shut down. So, but other than that show, I hadn't seen too much problems besides the straight up hardcore shows that I used to go to, where there was fights nonstop in Boston. So, but I feel like now it's a sense of community again. I think everybody supports everybody. I think there's great causes out there and benefits and stuff like that. So I really feel like nowadays is almost as strong as it was back then. And that was just, they were like, you know, it was almost like an invention of screamo. They was kind of just doing it as they went on, you know what I mean? And it turned into something great. I don't even think they knew what they were doing. They were just like, hey, this is the type of music we're playing. And then it turned into something, and now it's something even more, you know? But yeah, I was just lucky to be old and kind of get into the screamo thing, and still love it and still go to shows, you know, nowadays too. I feel like an old guy with gray hair. You've seen me with the big Santa beard. You know, I feel like they're like, who's the grandfather? Who brought their grandfather here to watch this screamo show? But it doesn't bother me, honestly. I don't really care either way. I'll be the weird guy in the back filming.
I would definitely posit some of you getting into what you are into because of your geographical placement. I think that's such an important part of, you know, what scene or what music that you listen to. And do you play shows? Can you play shows? Are there people to play shows with? Are there venues? All that kind of stuff. So I think that's when you're talking about being lucky. I think where you were was a huge part.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, New England in a whole. I mean, because everything's very close. I mean, New Hampshire is where we lived, and the bands that were from around here. It was an hour drive to Boston, and it was like 2.5 hour drive to Connecticut. So in Providence, Rhode Island had a good scene too. Very artsy, like heavy, but like weirdish type of music too at that time. And that was only like an hour and 45 minutes away. Or it was just there wasn't much. It wasn't too bad driving, but there was such a huge scene. And still, I mean, this show's all over the place now, still around here, popping off more now since COVID's kind of getting a little lax and stuff like that. And speaking of COVID, I wanted to ask you about the ZBR Fest, just like the Chicago one. Um, was that a risk for you because so many people were kind of scared of COVID at that time? And it was kind of like one of the first fests that I kind of saw that, you know what I mean? People were kind of still worried about COVID. Were you worried at all that that might not work?
I think at that point it had become obvious that the economy was more important than people's safety. So I kind of knew they weren't going to slow things down again. Um, it also came at a time when a lot of people were getting vaccinated because it was kind of early on in that process, I feel like.
Hmm.
And there was also realizing afterwards we were in between variants, essentially.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sure there was maybe a person or two who got sick from the fest, but no one that I know of got sick, and I put on the fest, so I
Yeah.
knew a fair amount of the people who went.
Yeah.
Um, so like I wore a mask. Not many people wore masks. To be honest, my gut instinct is 100% to be pushing for masks being mandatory for ZBR Fest 2023, because if you don't do that, then you're a selfish piece of shit. But I understand it not being mandatory, just like, you know, don't be anti-mask. So, no, I wasn't really too worried about it. In retrospect, I saw other fests happen, and, you know, bands were just dropping off from COVID, and
Yeah.
they couldn't even get to the fest. And we got really lucky. I think pretty much every band that backed out was due to scheduling conflicts or like the Canadian government just being shitty with passports. Sorry,
Yeah.
Terry Green.
Yeah, that was the first fest kind of that I noticed that went off pretty swimmingly and there was no issues at all, and that's why I was like, it worked out so good for you. But that's why I was asking you if you were like you had any worries that something would happen. You know what I mean? Even now, like after when I just saw this past like Hawak show and Nubla Skura and Sinaji was supposed to play, but that somebody got COVID in that band and they had to drop. And then Nubla Skura, like somebody got COVID like right after that show, so they canceled the last two or three. And something that happened with was it Frail Body and that European band. Somebody like the European band didn't get it, but somebody in
Oh, Oine, yeah. When
yeah,
Oine came over, you're
yeah,
right, because they like switched one of their dates around to a different show.
yeah.
Yeah,
So their tour
correct.
got shut down early too. Um, that's why I was asking, like, just worried about because you were seeing single shows getting canceled all the time too, just because venues were scared or like the band dropped off or something or somebody was getting COVID. So, but
If
hats
we
off.
had had it 6 months earlier, I think it would have been totally different. I would have been freaked out of my mind. But when it happened, I really didn't have many concerns, just because like I said, I knew things weren't going to shut down again.
Yeah,
And actually, when I was coming back from Chicago, they lifted the like random search tests in the airports too. So it was right at that time where it was
yeah.
obvious.
Almost perfect timing for
It
and you.
really was. In retrospect, it totally was, but we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, and like you said, in between variants too, like you pretty much hit lightning in the bottle by getting that show off. Definitely.
Yeah.
Now talking about ZBR Fest, you were saying 2023. Are you already working on the lineup for 2023?
I, I, I think I'm a little more proactive than most people. I was booking bands the day that we were doing ZBR Fest. So I was like, "You're coming back next year. Just a heads up." Or like, "Please come back next year. Would you like to come back next year?" I don't just demand. But I mean, we already have half of our lineup confirmed, and we've given deadlines, and we're moving on to our second wave of band asks like next week. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
already have the location and the date set in stone. So we are already 100% ready to go.
Now, is that Midwest? Or are you doing it up in Canada? Is it
No, I'm done with the Canadian ones.
just
After doing the Chicago one and the like, I'd never even been to Chicago basically, and I was just the way it was so different from the Vancouver one that I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So
yeah,
we're just gonna do Chicago from now on. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of the band's time and money to book it out there. At least it was back in 2019.
yeah, yeah. Now,
So
is there
Chicago forever.
any bands that you
Sorry.
divulge? Any bands that you can divulge who's playing in 2023, or are you keeping that under wraps?
We're going to release, I think, 5 band names right before the end of the year or early 2023. So I probably shouldn't say any, but honestly, like I'm blown away. We could not ask any more bands, and we would have a very very strong turnout. We got some yeses that we didn't expect.
Yeah, yeah.
Essentially,
So there is
usually we go
so
in. Sorry.
there are some prizes then.
Yeah. Oh, some that you wouldn't, or yeah, some that you wouldn't believe.
Nice. That's awesome. I wanted to also ask you about the label and reissuing some of the older stuff. Was it because you love those records so much that you reached out to those bands like Ruheda and Transistor and Off Minor and stuff like that? What was the thought process with you just reaching out and remaster? Were they all remastered? And no.
I don't think so. Ruheda and Off Minor were specifically.
Yeah.
Steve didn't like how he had mixed and mastered most of the records. So that was just the first one that he tackled. Ruheda got remastered for some reason, which I don't know. They are reformed. So there's
Yes.
another band that has come back
Yep.
after over 20 years of a hiatus. Um, so I mean, I basically just I it's like, what format has this particular album not been put out on? And generally, it was put out on CD, and I could do vinyl, or more often than not, it was put out on vinyl, and I don't want to do CDs, so I put it on tape. It
Yeah.
was essentially just me, like fanboying hard about being able to be involved with that band and being able to have that band's music on my Bandcamp was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
When I got the okay for Off Minor, when I got the okay for Ruheda, I'm trying to think of what was the first one I think the first reissue I did was Modern Rifles, actually,
Oh, really?
because that had come out on CD and I put it out on tape because I knew I couldn't sell 12 inches on Zegema because it's like a Jimmy Eat World kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so no, I just love them so much. I just wanted to be involved in that part of history, and then I would say like we also have some people who follow ZBRs, so you kind of get like a second coming or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, how did you pick and choose though? Because I mean, Off Miner has a pretty good catalog. Transistor has a really good catalog. I mean, how did you? Were those your favorite ones from their catalog that you wanted to release, or no?
No, no. So for Off Miner, Steve is like, I am going to be remixing, remastering everything. Do you want to release them? And I was like, yes. He's like, okay, I'm doing Nominate first. And I said, okay, we'll do that one first. So
Yeah.
that's why that happened. And then for what was the other one? For Hated? No,
Transistor.
Transistor. Transistor. I was like, let's do a full discography. And Nate was like, fuck no. Uh, I'm not putting out those old demos and stuff. I'm okay if you want to do these two albums. And I was like, can we do these two albums plus the 7-inch? And he was like, yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
that's why it's those releases.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always give them shit because I love the old stuff. The
Yeah,
first
so good. So
the
good. That's what got me into Transistor was like that first 8 song, whatever it is, the self-titled EP one.
yeah, the one with the television for head. Oh, I love
No,
that.
yeah,
And back then they were so fun to watch too. They were more of like a party screamo. It was almost the first time I've ever seen people like dance, like not, we're not talking mosh dancing or I'm talking full on dancing and doing all kinds of weird moves and stuff like that. They were really fun to watch and they hooked me every time that I saw them back then. And that's, that era of Transistor was very special for me.
they were super young, right? Weren't they like in high school when the self-titled EP came out?
I think they had just gotten out of high school. I think, yeah, just that. I mean, that's what New Hampshire like. I feel like all those bands were kids that just got out of high school. I mean, I don't know. I know you probably don't know Ukla the Mock, but they're kind of like a metalcore band that started in New Hampshire, and they got signed on Life Sentence Records, which was a straight edge label, and they went on tour all the way to California with this band called Grimlock from Massachusetts, and three of those members were 15, and I think their dad, two of their dads drove them to all the shows all the way to California and back again. And that's like the demo that I sent to you, Last House on the Left. The bass player and the guitar player were in that band with me after Uka Lamach had broken up. So
Props to those parents. It's dedication.
yeah, that is dedication for sure. Definitely. I feel like New Hampshire's hardcore and screamo scene was always young kids though, like very young, not so much older, late 20s, 30-year-old guys. But
Yeah, now it's spread across everything. I feel like now you've got 18-year-olds all the way to 40 plus people now.
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The scene I feel is so strong right now. Is it something that you thought would die out, or did you always think that it was going to keep going strong?
I I never, not never. I felt removed from the screamo scene until I started releasing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then even then, it was kind of not in my best interest to look if this was a good investment. So trying to think about, oh, is this going to be like a valid like genre in 10 years would have probably made me fold the label. Like, I shouldn't do something that's a bad business investment. So I never even thought about it. So I would say I only assumed with time that it would get stronger
Yeah.
because I could see that happening with my blog. I could see it happening with the label. I mean, it felt like practicing something. The more you practice, the more you do it, the better you get at it. More people might notice.
Yeah. Now, do you ever get burned out on screamo music? Do you like, do you have to kind of, you know, remove yourself for a second, listen to something else so that you can take a fresh take on it? You know what I mean?
I do, but not to get away from screamo.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that new Frankie Cosmos album came out. Oh, that new Nicole Dollanganger song just came out today. Oh, I'm all over that. But it's not because I
Yeah.
don't want to listen to screamo. It's just because I like that stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely have spent easily months, weeks where I didn't listen to anything. I didn't listen to anything but screamo. And I would see people post like, "Oh, I can't listen to screamo for more than like, you know, a couple songs in a row." And I'm like, "What? It's like a hook to my veins."
Now, you all obviously have a supportive wife. Is she like into the same type of music that you are?
I'm gonna say yes, but to a much lesser extent, and she has some limits to what she can take. Like if
Mhm.
you're throwing out a bunch of feedback, it's not for her.
Yeah.
If it's like death, any kind of like death growl stuff, she's not having it.
Yeah.
So, but she loves Converge. We've seen Converge a bunch. She loves Botch. She loves Off Minor. She loves Seisha. She loves Wolves. She loves Orchid. I tried showing her like some newer stuff, and if it gets into like the MySpace or like grind category, she's not having that either.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, is there anything that you don't want to touch on your label? I mean, we're talking about genres like power violence and like crust and straight up screamo, twinkly screamo, like all kinds of different stuff. Is there something that you kind of don't want to release that you're not kind of into, or is it just if it's heavy and you like it, that's what you're gonna do?
It's really just if I like it, because you could make the argument that, well, I guess it depends on if you're talking about just ZBR, because I didn't used to have soft seed music, and there was a time when there wasn't even Tomb Tree, so Modern Rifles, Girl Arm, Blue Youth, Said Goner all ended up on ZBR when in retrospect, they probably shouldn't have been on the label because it was hard to sell their stuff for the most part because most of the people wanted screaming, mathy, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not against releasing anything. Like I just at this point I would think about it as a partial investment too because when I there's something that I know I can't sell on ZBR, then I look to my other two labels. And I'm like, oh, is if it's still heavy, it should go on Tomb Tree, and if it has no heaviness at all, then it should go on Soft Seed. So that's how I essentially do it now. I mean, there's certainly musical genres that I do not like as much as other ones, and you probably won't ever catch me listening to, so I wouldn't think I would release anything from those, but I'm not against anything enough to be like, I'm never going to release something by this genre.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. With ZBR too, I know it'd be tough for you to pinpoint stuff, but what is your five favorite releases that ZBR has put out in your mind that you enjoyed the most? Like, which is,
Are we doing full albums? Like
anybody
an
else.
LP? Did you want LPs or just releases?
Um, Give me LPs. Your top five LPs that ZBR has put out.
First Nuclear Obscura 12-inch, Senza 12-inch, Via Fondo, War Automation, probably. Oh, for number five, who would it be? Gift from God. The first Gift from God. Not a 12-inch, but 8 songs. It's long enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe a 12-inch one day. I've been screaming at them for years to let me do that. So I haven't gotten a no, but I haven't gotten the go ahead either. So Grant, give me the go. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, what is your all-time favorite? Not just album, but what's your all-time favorite ZBR release that you're so proud of and that you really enjoyed the music?
Um, that might be different. Those two things. I feel like There's something about the Paramount A Love Supreme EP that I think is like the best thing that's come out in a very long time. But it's not the one that I'm most proud of. I'm pretty. I'm probably most proud of the I Wrote Haikus cassette, probably that we did. Um, I don't know. The Loftus 12-inch. I don't know. I don't know. One of those two.
Yeah, nice, nice. Now, do you have any news on upcoming things that you're releasing that you could actually tell people that's coming
Yeah,
up in the...
for sure. Yeah, like the rest of this year is pretty much totally booked up for both Tomb Tree and ZBR. So ZBR has the Thank You Driver 3-song EP tape coming out on Monday, and I can't stress enough how much that rocked my world when I first heard it. I just sat in my chair looking at Lisa like, it's everything I wanted. It's everything I want. Very, very happy with that release. And I finished those. We just released Holly Caught a Contact High on Tomb Tree. Then there's November 22nd. November 22nd is the Lower Automation new 12-inch, which is just ridiculous. And I think the day before is the Victor Shore's new album on Tomb Tree. What else? Keratin on Tomb Tree is an Australian band with members of Gil Cerrone. I don't know if you heard the new single that just came out. It is so good. It's so good. I couldn't believe it when they sent it to me. It's Australians playing Swedish, like Trishimbrad and Suila Loon and Via Fondo style music. It's just absolutely fantastic. That releases December 5th on Tomb Tree on tape. December 2nd is the Massanera 12-inch LP, which is easily one of the biggest Screamo releases, I think, of the last few years.
Yeah.
And we're doing 500 12-inches and 100 CDs and 200 tapes. Definitely the biggest release that ZBR has ever done, but 100% worth it. Awesome people, awesome music. Yubari Go Go discography cassette on Tomb Tree later in December. I think we might be releasing the Salt Money tape on Tomb Tree, but it hasn't been discussed if that's happening late December or in January. I'm missing something from CBR, but I forget what it is. So I'll go with those ones.
Now, going into CDs, is that a tough thing for you to, because I feel like nobody's doing CDs anymore. I'm an old school guy, and I have a shit ton of CDs still because I sold all my vinyl like an idiot. So I kept like a lot of my CDs. Is that like a tough thing because nobody's really listening to CDs anymore?
Yeah, I learned my lesson early. I released La Parade on CD as well as 12-inch. And then I released a French band, Raven or Raven, I don't know, Ravin on CD. Really good emo violence. Couldn't sell the CD for the life of me. Then I put up like my own personal CDs, or I got some CDs through distro trades and stuff. Pretty much couldn't move those either. I do sell more CDs now than I did before, but it's also because I've been around for longer. So Massanera asked, can we do CDs? And I was like, okay, because you're awesome. But I would generally just be like, let's do tapes. Tapes will sell a lot better than CDs, and I can make them look nicer as well.
Yeah. Now, you don't think it'll come back around like tapes did? Because tapes died out for the longest time, and now all of a sudden it's an explosion of cassette tapes that are being released now. Do you think CDs will ever get back to kind of where cassettes are nowadays?
They might. They certainly might. I mean, vehicles getting rid of the CD player, I think, was definitely not helpful for anyone who likes CDs or wants to use them. But the turnaround I noticed when I ordered the Massanera CDs was like, I think the non-rush job was like 9 days.
Yeah.
9-day turnaround. And then you pay for rush like 3 to 5 days. I'm like, 3 to 5 days? You're paying out the butt for tapes if you do 10 to 12-day rush. So the fact that you can get the CDs done in 9 days is something that I would consider for a band who is like, we really want to release this super fast and we're not willing to move the dates because I don't want to do, we're kind of done with pre-orders.
Yeah.
We've just been screwed by plants and stuff too much, and then you have impatient people and they don't read the news posts, and so
Yeah.
So no more pre-orders, no more mock-ups. Just get rid of that altogether.
Yeah. Nice,
So
nice.
the answer to that is definitely maybe. Definitely maybe.
Yeah. I'm for it if it is, because like I said, I'm an old guy and I enjoy
Yeah, me
seeing.
too. I have lots as well. I like it's got bigger art. It's
Mm.
got bigger art than tapes, and you can store more of them in a small space.
And I think it's a longer shelf life. I feel like tapes kind of have like a short shelf life for when they don't start not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it's a mixed bag, right? Because those won't last a long time, but CDs scratch super easy.
Yeah, true. If you don't take care of them well, then it's
Yeah.
pretty much useless to do. I
Yeah,
wanted to
vinyl
before
is.
get to I don't want to keep you too long. I wanted to get into the bands and why you wanted to get into a band and what made you want to get into, like, were you because you were so into this scene that you were like, I want to start a band and be in a band?
I never. I mean, so growing up, I was only ever in one band. I played bass in a band when I was in high school, and we were like a skate punk band with some. The guitar player was ridiculously good, so we had some metal leanings. And then I wrote when I was in university. I had a bass, and I just like wrote an album on bass and like screamed to it.
Hmm.
So I always knew that I wanted to do something, but the opportunity never really presented itself. I didn't have musical friends. I think that's all the time now. My elementary school upbringing, with the exception of my brother's friends, my friends, no one was into like music essentially. I
Yeah.
really regret my geographical placement in life. And then even in university, I played with my roommate. It was hard to get him to play, and then he did, and we wrote some songs, and it was great, but like never shows, never anything like that. So
Yeah.
when Chris from Neotej, his solo project, was like, "Do you want to do vocals for my online project?" I was like, "Sweet."
Yeah.
So it wasn't even, in my opinion, a band, nor did I have a prospect of ever touring with an internet project. That I didn't think it was feasible.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, I mean, I got into the world that summer. That I had toured at this point with Neotej, so I'm in Hamilton now. I moved to Hamilton, so I'm like, this is a spot where I can maybe meet some people. And I met two people one at a fair, the guitar player at a fair, and the drummer at a Joliet Life and Vacuum show.
Yeah.
And I was able to bring those two people together, and then they each knew one extra person too. So we became a five piece from that. That was really fun. That's the only like local band that I was in for a while, but then I left for New Zealand, so that band ended. And then when I got to New Zealand, immediately started Swallow's Nest, which was I like had messaged people in New Zealand before even leaving, like I want to start a band. So I was in two bands before I even landed, and that one didn't end when I left, but my obviously participation in that band ended when I left.
Yeah.
And then I got to BC, and I had a couple of musical friends, but they just weren't interested in starting any additional projects, which was a huge bummer. I tried to get stuff started on the island. Everything just kept falling through. So eventually I just said, fuck this. And I bought a guitar. And now Jesse Mowry from like Apostles of Eris and um, In Wolf's Clothing and all that, he's giving me guitar lessons on the internet. So I have a friend who just moved here in Nanaimo who plays drums, and I'm taking it into my own hands. I'm just starting a band, and so that there's that going to be next.
Nice, nice. And do you have a name for this band?
No, no,
Not,
I played bass for a long time. I can play bass, chords, and the proper like technique with using the guitar. I'm not good at, so I need to I need to figure that out before we really have practice. I have stuff written, but I don't think it's very good. I think early 2023 we practice. Hopefully mid 2023 we can start playing shows. So no, it'll be the only Vancouver Island screamo band though, because there's no screamo bands here.
now, what brought you to New Zealand? I mean, it seems like you kind of were, you know, almost nomadic and going around places, from close to Toronto, and now you're
British Columbia and New Zealand and where else did you say you lived for a little while?
I was just on the mainland in BC before we were able to come to the island.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, basically, I just got very tired of Ontario. My wife and I both, and one of my friends. I had told one of my friends that we were considering moving to New Zealand, and she got me in touch with one of her friends who had lived in Toronto, who lives in New Zealand. And I essentially moved to the town that he was in.
Yeah.
Uh, but my wife wasn't really into the weather, and it was really hard for us to find jobs when we got there.
Hmm.
And then we got pregnant, and it didn't make sense to stay there.
Yeah.
So we came to BC because it's the most New Zealand. We loved the look of New Zealand, so it's the most New Zealand looking part of Canada. And we're very happy that we ended up here.
Now, where did Our Future Is an Absolute Shadow, like, where did that come in?
So in 2019 or early 2020, I think it was like 2019, Adrian from Old Soul, and he used to play in Cloud Rat when they first formed. He he just wrote a bunch of drum tracks and then
Hmm.
posted on Facebook, "Hey, I wrote a bunch of drum tracks. Does anyone want to write guitars to this?" And my boy Jesse Mowry messaged him and said, "I want to do it." So then they did 2 songs, and then Jesse was like, "Hey, we should get Dave to do vocals on this." So Jesse asked me, "Do you want to do vocals on this new project?" And I heard the songs, and I was like, "Oh my God, yes!"
Yeah.
So then I did the songs for those 2, and then I found out that they had 10. So then we did all 10, and they ended up on the Zampler, the split 7-inch with Komarov, and the EP. And we did then in early 2021, I want to say. Uh, Adrian was like, "Hey, Jesse, I have 25 minutes of new material that I just drummed out. Here's 26 minutes of drums." We're like, "Whoa, how many tracks?" He's like, 21. Like, oh my God. These are very short songs. Uh, but that LP is pretty much done. The drums are done, the guitars, the bass are done, my vocals are 100% done.
Hmm.
The field recordings are 100% done and inserted, but Adrian is not doing vocals this time around. Jesse is going to do the vocals. So Jesse is currently doing his vocals. I heard the first half is already done. And then Ophelia from Burial Etiquette is going to be contributing vocals to a couple of the tracks.
Nice.
I've heard some. Again, they're not done, but they are almost done. So I think I think we'll have all the vocals done by the end of the year. Oh, and Arvid from Visa Malskate Varandra Samiket from Sweden contributed vocals to one song also. So there's a fair
Wow.
amount of people on that. 5 of those 20 songs ended up on the Cube 12-inch split because I had already written 5 songs, like lyrically. So we got those ones out of the way. So now the LP, we took 2 songs and mixed them down into one. So it's 14 songs. It's gonna be 14 songs, probably like, I don't know, spring, summer 2023. But I mean, I'm biased, but like the stuff that Jesse and Adrian wrote is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's very good, and I think people are really gonna like it. It's
Yeah.
definitely the best thing that I've ever been a part of. Like no doubt, no question.
Can't wait to hear it. Definitely. I've always everything that I've heard you do vocally, I've always enjoyed. Did you always want to like do vocals? Saying that you played bass kind of before when you were younger. What made you be like, all right, I can scream and I can do this? Like,
Um, so I played a couple shows when I was young and played bass, and I enjoyed it. And then when I got into Thrice, Illusion of Satan, no, it was before that. It was the one before, the one with Phoenix Ignition, Identity Crisis.
mhm.
Like I was really hard into that, and for whatever reason, I don't remember what prompted me to do it. But when no one was home after school, I would take my boombox and I would blast Phoenix Ignition in my face, the volume at 10, and I would try to scream along. I didn't have the intention of like writing music to go with it or something. I don't know what was going on,
Yeah,
but I realized that I could scream, and I think my brother and his friends came home one day early from school because they skipped school. That's what it was. And they came home to me doing that, and they're like, "Whoa, you got a really good scream!" And
yeah,
I think that's when I was like, "Oh, maybe next time I'm gonna do stuff in a band, I'll try to scream." So in university, when I had like practice with my friends, the 3 practices we ever had, I would play bass, but I would like to throw in a few screams. And then after Chris let me do vocals in Miatage and I did vocals live, I just said, like, I don't ever want to do an instrument again. I
Yeah.
just want to do vocals.
Yeah.
I can't do that now, so now I have to play an instrument and try to do vocals at the same time, which I've never done before, and seems to be very difficult.
Yeah, I was never good at playing an instrument. I picked up the guitar and I was like, I can't do this. I just couldn't. It wasn't for me. And so that for me is when I was like, all right, I want to try to, scream in bands and stuff like that. And that's kind of how it went on. Although I was like singing and screaming, so it was kind of you've heard, like, it was kind of like a weird like soft singing voice and then like a heavier voice for me, and then I just had to work things out as I went on, because the last band I wasn't singing at all because I didn't want to sing, because I had gotten progressively worse at singing. So
Practice isn't real, apparently. What? I was going to ask you a question about your singing, but now I forget. Never mind.
Yeah. So I don't want to keep you too long. I know you. Are you still kneeling on the ground?
I'm sitting with my arms wrapped around my knees,
All right.
but I have changed positions a few times.
All right. I don't want to like. I want to make sure that you actually can stand up after we chat. So usually at the end of these.
I'm okay.
All right, sweet. Usually at the end of these conversations, I usually do a rapid fire. So you ready for some rapid fire?
Go.
All right. My first question, always, all-time favorite New England hardcore screamo band for you?
I'm a Canadian, damn it. I don't know. Name some. Ampere? No, they're what?
No, they're New England. They're from New England is Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont.
Wrong guy to ask that question to.
So it would be like
I would need a list.
It would be like, some people say Orchid, some people say Ampere, some people say Converge, some people say Cave In, some people say Daughters, some people say Arab on Radar.
I would go with Cave In as the best band and Orchid as the most influential to my taste in music.
Sweet, nice. My second question, what was the first punk hardcore show you attended, like real show that you attended, that was not like a battle of the bands or like in somebody's garage? What was the first?
Lucky Number 7 was a band in my high school before Protest the Hero. Ska punk. Nah.
All right. My next question, what was your all-time favorite show you played in a band? What was your all-time favorite show that you played that meant something?
Just because of the crowd's interaction and watching the videos is fun, is the Baltimore show I played at Scramden Yards with Miatesh in 2015 or something like that. 2016, I think.
Nice. Was there anybody else on that bill that you played with that was?
That is purely a selfish favorite show because I've never had anyone get into the music that I've been screaming as much as the people who were at that show.
Yeah.
But if it was in terms of like the best show that I've played with other bands, it would definitely be the first CBR Fest in Toronto. Because I played with Crowning and What of Us and God knows who else. They're all really good.
Yeah, nice. My next question, what was your all-time favorite screamo show you attended that you didn't play? Like that you went...
2006, 2007, La Quiete, Ed Gein, Storm the Bastille, Phoenix Bodies.
Nice.
Wow.
Wow.
Did I say La Quiete? Yes, it was La Quiete, not Rain. That's right. I haven't seen Rain.
Wow, that's a lineup right there.
Best show I've ever seen.
Wow. That's crazy. I'm a big movie guy. I always ask this. What was the last movie you watched?
I've been watching a lot of like shows and stuff recently, so I'm trying to think of an actual movie that I've watched. probably would have been one of the movies that I've watched a bunch of times. So I would assume it would have been Starship Troopers. I watch Aliens and Starship Troopers every year, at least once, and I watch Predator and Predator 2 pretty often too. So probably those.
Now, speaking of Predator, have you seen Prey, the newest kind of installment of the Predator? And
Yeah,
what did
like a lot of the Predator and Alien movies, pretty much all of them have been shit over the past while. So I was expecting zero, and it was entertaining. Like that one of those aliens recently, the one where they're like you breathe in the alien and then it grows through your lungs or whatever. That one was cool, but every other alien movie was bad. And I thought that new Predator movie was an entertaining watch, but again, everything other than that, besides number 1 and number 2, is not even worth anyone's time in my opinion.
yeah.
Half-assed.
I watched a movie called Smile last night. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not seen that. Is it a newer movie?
Yeah, it's a newer horror movie where have you ever seen the movie It Follows?
Yes.
It's almost in the vein of that, except like instead of having sex in the entity keeps going with you, it's you have to watch somebody commit a atrocious suicide in front of you, and then you in turn 5 days later will do a atrocious suicide to yourself, and
like The Ring too.
Yeah, it keeps going on and on and on. Yes, it was run of the mill, I guess.
For shows, Dorohedoro. Dorohedoro is the greatest. If anyone hasn't seen that anime show, it's on Netflix. It's fantastic.
Nice. No, I haven't seen it. Definitely.
Check it out.
Nice.
Weird shit, but so good, so funny.
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. My next question, always kind of in the movie vein of things, is your favorite horror movie of all time.
What's favorite? Jaws really messed me up. I watched that half of it when I was 5, and then the other half after I turned 6. So that's a movie that did a good job. My favorite one to watch repeatedly is probably The Exorcist with the extra scenes. But I do like a lot of more modern stuff as well. I watched The Babadook as well recently. I thought that was extremely scary.
Yeah. What's some of the newer ones that you would recommend horror wise? Have you seen like really newer ones like?
No, I shouldn't say. Yeah, like again, I because I do so much other stuff. Sitting down, knowing something's an hour and a half to 2 hours, I have trouble with. But I'll watch like TV series like There's No Tomorrow. Yeah. I feel like some of the most recent ones are like, what was it? It Follows. What's the one with it's not even that new. The one where the girl gets switched in the mirrors. It's by the same guy.
I know what about. Oh God, I can't think of the name of it.
But that one, and it's okay. There's a good premise, and then by the end, I was like, I feel like I'm really elitist with movies recently. Whatever.
That's how they all start out like that. I feel like I'm always like, yeah, the first like quarter of the movie, and then by the end, I'm like, oh God,
it becomes so predictable.
You
watch the movie at night, don't you?
No, I'm like you too. I watch a lot of series. I try to watch a lot of series. I think the new series that I'm going to start right now is Let the Right One In has a new series. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. It was a foreign movie, and then they remade it, and now it's a series actually.
Is that the Korean vampire one?
Isn't it Swedish I think it's from Sweden. I think.
Oh, maybe I didn't see that one then.
I think the one you're not thinking of, The Sadness, are you, from Korea? That's kind of more.
I don't know. Is the one you're talking about with a little girl?
Yes.
Oh, I think I heard about it, but I don't think I saw it. Is it worth watching?
I heard the series was good. The original movie, the foreign movie, is really good. If you haven't seen it.
I have not. That's specifically what I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, and the American like version of it. They did a good job. I mean, it's obviously not as good, but they did a decent job at remaking it. But I feel like that's like any movie that gets Americanized. You know what I mean? Like Old Boy. I don't know if you've ever seen Old Boy from,
Oh,
but
yeah.
the remake of the United States version with Josh Brolin. I was like, if you never saw the original, you'd be like, oh, that was a good movie. But if you saw the original, you're like, all right, it doesn't compare really to the original at all.
Not even, no. I didn't even watch it. I didn't watch the full trilogy, the Revenge trilogy. I only watched the first two, I think. But like, as I lived in Korea, I got my fill of, not my fill. I got to experience a lot of really awesome Korean movies while I was there.
Yeah,
And, that stuff.
Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is awesome. That's the second one.
That's the one I saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one where like the last scene is in like the swamp thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
good.
a great movie.
Yeah, so good.
Koreans make some phenomenal films. Have you ever seen Joint Security Area, JSA?
No.
Oh, dude, it's not a horror movie, but you got to see that. It's about people from the north and the south, Korea, like during the wartime, making a connection. It is so good.
Oh, I'm definitely on that then, because that's the thing I love. When somebody gives me something that I haven't seen, I have to go and watch it right away, because especially you're saying it's so good, then I have to go. I'll be searching for it once I get off here. I'll be like, put it in my queue, get it ready to go, you know.
I got one more for you. Memories of Murder.
I've seen that. Great.
That's a really good one too.
Great movie. Definitely great. That's what I was saying about the sadness. I feel like, if you've never heard of it, it's kind of like a take on zombies, but it almost has the premise of kind of like a COVID theme. Like it's more of like a disease that's happening and people aren't, they don't believe it. And like they have the people like, oh, that's not going to do anything. And then all of a sudden it's more of like, they get ultra violent when they get this. And then it's also like sexually depraved also. So it's really like a twisted movie, but it's for the first time in a long time I felt uncomfortable. And movies don't usually make me feel uncomfortable, and when they do, they're doing their job, I guess. So
yeah,
as crazy as that movie is, they did a good job, and it's not cheesy. You know what I mean? So I'll send you a link to the trailer, and judge for yourself. But it's really good. But I'll keep going. My next question. I'm a big kind of 90s hip hop boom bap fan, as well as, screamo and hardcore. If you've been listening to hip hop at all, what have you been listening to?
I haven't.
At all? None.
No, I don't really listen to much hip hop and rap. I mean, I've done like Talib Kweli and like a little bit of like Black Alicious and as a Black Star and stuff, but it never really resonates enough with me to check stuff out further.
Yeah. Nice. My next question. What is your favorite song to play live? And all your bands, what like, give me a few of your favorite songs that you like to play live that you created.
Swallow's Nest was A Subtle Knife for New Doors. The World That Summer was Moth Volcano. What else was there? Mia Tej. Probably June, July, and Life Over Die.
Nice. I got two more questions for you. Give me your top 5 bands that you love from Canada.
Buried Inside. Van Johnson. They have to be active?
No, not at all. No.
Okay, good, because neither of those are. Terry Green. God, there's a lot of good ones. Camio Vere.
Yearning's good. Yearning's
That's
really
good right now, at least.
good.
I'm sure if I saw a giant list, I would change that around, but off the top of my head, that's what.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good bands from Canada. I can't get over it. I mean, I love Karloff. Karloff, that last thing they released, Jesus, that's like just incredible stuff. I thought.
Can't get much more emotional than that. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know if you've seen Basque yet, but Basque is very similar. I think you'll like Basque.
really. No, I don't think I've heard it. Now, what's that on? Where can I
That's
find?
Nate's new band.
Oh, really? No, he hasn't. No. Oh, I know that Safdie.
You can watch videos when Blind Girls came over. I followed them on tour basically until I got COVID, and so like I got some live videos of them playing.
Wow, no kidding. And it's the kind of the same sounding stuff, or is it different?
Um, I mean, it's still Nate shrieking,
Yeah,
so and it's much more. I'd say it's more experimental than like fast and like screamo-y. It's still screamo. It's still really early on too. I've only heard they had 4 songs written. They
yeah,
had 4 songs, so they have not kind of chosen a path yet. But they have one song in particular that everyone was like, that song is awesome. So I'm hoping they go that
yeah.
route.
Nice, yeah. I enjoy Safdie too, but he kind of downplays that band a little bit. Which and another Montreal band that I love is Cell Press. I think what Cell Press put out is
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think
I'm a big
they're
Cypress fan.
really good. And
Oh, Blue Youth. I should have said Blue Youth. Oh, Blue Youth is one of my favorite bands. Blue Youth. North of America? I didn't say North of America. Ah!
yeah, Obrea Sky. I'm pumped about that. The new stuff that they're recording too. Like I can't wait to hear that stuff as well.
Who,
I know
sorry?
Obrea Sky.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah,
They're,
no, I heard demos of that like a year ago, and it sounded like a different band. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I heard it and I said, this sounds like Japanese screamo. This is really, really good.
yeah.
Not what I was expecting them to sound like.
Yeah, I'm amped to hear it. I can't wait to hear it because everything they put out I love. And then now that I know, are they still recording? I know they were recording like a little bit, like just a little while ago. Maybe touching up some stuff or
Yeah, I haven't delved for any updates. Last time I saw them at New Friends Fest, and I knew that they were I think they were gearing up to record. So one would assume 2023 probably a record. I
yeah.
don't, I'm not involved. I'm not in the band, but I'm calling here 2023 Obroska. All right.
And finally, my last question: give me your top 5 screamo bands all time for you. Like, give me the golden era of screamo bands for you. Top 5.
Welcome to Plague Year, Neil Perry, Joshua Fit for Battle. Mm, well, there's a lot. Code Armada and Birthday Boys.
Birthday Boys, very underrated. Very underrated
Well,
band.
the greatest screamo song ever written.
Very underrated. I want to thank you so much for doing this with me. Like I said, I was stoked on this, and it's just an honor to talk to you. And like I said, I want you to do some stretches after that, that bad posture you got going where you kind of crouched over doing this, and I appreciate that. I mean, doing that for almost an hour and 45 minutes is something that something else.
Sure, we'll put it that way.
Well, at first I thought I was going to interview your cat because you had your cat on the
Oh, I know, on the bed. Oh man,
but
I had like this whole thing ready, and I'm like, what is happening? I'm not supposed to see all the dirty stuff.
and also I wanted to make sure that if you have anything that you want to promote or say or tell people right now that you, I know you said a lot of releases that you had, but do you have anything else that you want to promote or let people know that you have your hands in right now?
Oh, I am doing so. Gary from Carinair and Gone Mage and Homeskin and Salamoth and probably other stuff too. He finally decided to write a screamo album with his friend, and I had expressed interest in helping doing vocals for something for him for screamo. So he was like, "My friend here is going to do the primary vocals, and you do the secondary vocals." And I was like, "Oh, sweet! When he writes the vocals, like, get me the lyrics, and I'll like do my parts to it." And then he died. he passed away like last week. So I am now the primary vocalist for that project. And I was going to do the first set of vocals today, then remembered I had a podcast and thought, maybe I'll wait. Or this would have been a very raspy, unemotional podcast from me. So I've given myself 3 months to do those 9 songs, but some of them were like 8 minutes long. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be working pretty hard to get that done now that I've finished the Our Future LP. So that's the only other thing I think that I have my hand in that no one knows about. And I also want to say, please don't be a shitty person. There's so many shitty people out there. Please try to do something good for someone, especially in times like this.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Being humble is a big thing nowadays, and I feel it gets lost with a lot of people, and that's, this is, we're talking about labor of love. This is my labor of love, doing this and just letting people know about the scene. And I talk to a lot of older people from older bands and try to have them, go back and listen to their catalog and kind of be like, oh, I hadn't listened to this for a while, like, and enjoy that. And then I also try to promote newer bands that I find out about. I'm not as extensive as you because I need like some recommendations from you. Actually, this will be the last thing before we go. Give me 3 recommendations that I should listen to that you don't think I've heard that is really fucking good.
Are we talking like super new?
Super new, yeah. Something that's like blown you away within the past, say, 5-6 months that you don't think I've heard.
Once, oh my lord. I'm going to go more current just because my brain was already going there. Maybe you know because Nate released it, but it got released on Bandcamp early. Votive, Votive.
I've heard of it, but I haven't listened to it yet.
Well, then that is now on your playlist because you're doing a poor job there. You need to go listen to that. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's Rohan from Respire and Fox Mulder, and also as a member of Gas Up Your Hearse, Kyle Rhoda is in the band too. Really amazing. I recently heard the Roman Candle, I think is the band name. Discount Fireworks is the EP.
Mm-hmm.
I was just searching for new Screamo stuff, and both those things came out on the same day, on like the 22nd of October. They were both really good. If you like Nuevo Lascura, but it's maybe too techie for you, listen to Roman Candle. One more?
Yeah, give me one more.
Gil Cerrone. Totally underrated EP that we released on Tomb Tree. One of the best Screamo things to come out this year. Easy. You like Funeral Diner and that kind of stuff, you need to get on Gil Cerrone.
Nice.
So good.
Nice. Now, see,
it's called like Coronac or something. Coronach.
You just giving me that. That's my ride to work for next week. All those right there, so I can jam them. That's where I tune in. Right there is my ride to work. Turn it up real loud, zone out, drive. That's my listening thing right there.
3 nice 5-song EPs for you. Nothing too long.
Nice. And I wanted to mention Diana Krall's from Canada too. They don't get enough respect, in my opinion. And I don't know when, anything's coming out. I know they were working on newer stuff, but
the vocalist is not the band anymore.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes, that's pretty big news because like she was in Camio Vere, one of the bands that I was listing as my top 5. So Camio Vere broke up and formed Diana Krall's with the vocalist, and then the drummer formed, I don't know how to say it, Au bout des livres or something like that.
Yeah.
Super Ditro, but like even screamier. Very good, in my opinion. Maybe better than Diana Krall's, but yeah. Diana Krall's definitely has their own thing, and seeing Diana Krall's live is amazing, really amazing. Or at least was, because the singer would go around and throw glitter on people and stuff. But,
yeah.
So I don't know who their new vocalist is, or if they have someone from the band now doing vocals.
Yeah.
Exclusively. But yes, I agree. Diana Krall's absolutely fantastic. I'm very interested to hear what the new stuff sounds like because I have no idea. I'm a vocal person first, so.
Yeah, me too. Me as well. Dave, thank you so much. And I'm going to let you go and enjoy your night. I appreciate you so much for doing this, and it's been honestly a pleasure talking to you. And on all the time, I message you here and there. I'll be, aggravating you from time to time, and showing you stuff, and sending
That's
you.
not aggravating. That's my crave. You're feeding my addiction.
But thank you so much, and let's stay in touch all the time. Let's, anytime I'm here. If you need anything in New England, New Hampshire, if you're ever up in this neck of the woods, hit me up. I'll put you in the right direction.
I got to find out where that is first.
Yeah.
Canadian.
It's an hour from Boston, so that's just.
You think that helps, but it doesn't.
All right, man. Have a great
Thanks
night.
so much, Hal. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah,
A lot of fun.
all right, man. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.